So thanks again for joining us today, and let's go ahead and get right into Classroom. One of the things that you're going to need to be aware of is that for some reason, when it comes to finding the Google Classroom app, you'll want to go from your Mail tab to the Rubik's Cube or the waffle icon, and then go to More, and then Classroom will show up. It's important for you to know that because occasionally if you're in another app and you click on the Rubik's Cube, the Classroom app won't show up unless you're in the Mail tab. So that's just sort of a little tidbit, but I'm going to go ahead and click on Classroom. If this is the first time you've ever gone to Classroom, you're going to be looking at a beautiful chalkboard that's welcoming you to Classroom, but all of us should see a plus sign in the top right-hand corner. It's really important that if you're a staff member, the first time you go to create a class, you need to actually create one, even if you're not going to use it, just so that you can let Google know that you are indeed a teacher and not a student. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the plus sign. I'd like for you to do that too. And we are going to choose Create a Class. Your students will click on the plus sign and join a class, but we're going to do Create a Class. So I'm going to click there, and it's going to have me name my class. So right away, one of the things that we recommend is creating a sample classroom or a test classroom so that you can go in and play with the grading system and adding materials and doing all sorts of things, testing them out in your fake class, so to speak, so that it's not impacting your real class, and it gives you kind of a little playground so that you don't have to worry about impacting anything. So I'm going to call this my sample class I'm just going to put today's date so I'll remember when I made it. So this is my sample class. In the section, you can put the school year. You may want to put something like third period, whatever is going to help you remember this section of this class. So I'm going to say second period, or this might be where you put 2015, 2016. So this is my second period, and I'm going to click Create. Now what Google tries to do as soon as you're creating is it tries to guess, based on the title that you gave the class, what kind of image might be fitting. So here I have this great picture of this insect here pollinating, but if you put classroom in the title, you might get a room full of chairs. If you put chemistry, you might get a thing with beakers and all kinds of different things. But we're going to talk about how to change those in a minute. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a few minutes and I'm going to go over the interface with you and how to actually get students and teachers in your class. And then I'm going to pass the torch over to Angie, and she's going to talk about adding content to the class so that you're using it as a classroom. So before I pass it on to Angie, let's take a look at the interface. So over here on the left, you're going to see something called the hamburger icon. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and you'll notice a little drawer will open, and I actually double clicked on it. Sorry about that. So I'm going to go back to my sample class, and I'm going to just click once. There we go. This is our hamburger menu, and at the very top is a really important button. That's our home button, which takes you back to your classes screen. And as you create classes or join classes, you'll have these little cards, and each of the cards will tell you something about your class. It'll tell you how many students are in it, the title of the class, and if you have any assignments. So that's your home button. Underneath that is the calendar. Even after we make this and post this online, there's going to be a new feature added because Google likes to be in constant improvement and adding features. The calendar was only added a short time ago, and so the quick link is there, and Angie's going to talk to you more about that later. In this bottom section, you'll see where this says Teaching, and this one says Enrolled. These are the classes that I'm currently teaching, and these are the classes in which I'm enrolled. And you'll know that as a staff member, you may be a student in a class, especially if it's a professional development session or a grade level team or anything like that where someone is using a Google Classroom as a place to collaborate. You may find that you are actually a student in some of those classes. Then at the bottom, should you have any archived classes, this is where those will be, and Angie will talk more about those later. So to leave your hamburger menu, you just click over in the main section and that hamburger menu closes. At the top of your class, you'll see the title of your class, and you'll see what I put in my section ID, which is second period. And underneath that, you will see the teacher. Now, right now, Jane Doe is the teacher of this class, and I can add other teachers to co-teach with me. That is a relatively new feature to Google Classroom as well. Over on the right, you will see where you can select a theme. Again, Google chooses one for you, but you can click on Select Theme and choose either pictures or patterns that may be more applicable to your classroom. Once you choose one and you set it as the theme, the color scheme will change and the picture will change accordingly. There's also an area that you can upload your own photo. You just have to make sure it's a panoramic photo, so it needs to be at least 800 megapixels wide and at least 200 megapixels high. So you'll want to make sure that if you want to add a picture that you look at those dimensions. Now, across the top, there are 3 important tabs in Google Classroom, and we're going to go through these quickly before Angie shows us how to add that content. So in your first tab is called Stream. And if you're familiar at all with Facebook or Twitter or other social media tools, you'll know that the stream is where you have a current piece of information at the top, and as soon as a newer piece of information comes, that information will then go down and the newer information will take its place, so that the current information is always on the top unless the teacher has done something called pinning, which actually keeps it at the top. But any activity in our class, posting, assignments, anything like that will appear on the stream. Now at the top left, you and your students will see any upcoming due dates. The teacher will also see an area where they can toggle on if they need to see if there were any deleted items that they may need to restore. I usually keep this off unless there's a certain reason I need to find a deleted item. And then you'll see the class code, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. To the right, you're going to see a very important icon that Angie's going to spend some time with, and that's our plus symbol, and this is where you actually go to add things to your course. So we're going to come back here with Angie. So let's go over to the Students tab. We'll come back here in a little bit when we start adding students, but I wanted to show you in your view, this is called students. In the students view, this is called classmates, but this is where you will see a list of the students in your class. It's also where you'll find your class code, you'll set some permissions, and you can invite students to join your class. Now the About tab, we do need to do something to our class right now before we even start to invite students, and that is we need to fill out this about information where there are some blanks. You don't have to do this, but it's a good idea to do that. Now I call this one sample class, but you might have a more cute title that you want to put in here or a more familiar title with your students. So I'm just going to put Miss Doe's family. That's going to be the name of our classroom. And this is a description. So this is for, AP English students. Whoops. Okay, so you can put a description in here that will help your students. Now, as your students start getting enrolled in lots of different Google Classrooms, this description and this title will be really important, so they'll be able to keep their classes straight. So if you have even a course number that you want to put there, something that will make it familiar to your students, that's fine. If there's a certain room where this meets and you want to put your room number here, I'm going to go ahead and say the MRA Computer Lab because that's where we are right now. So we have our computer lab. Angie's going to talk a little bit more about these folders, but this is all we needed to put in the About section, and I'm going to click Save. So that immediately updates that information. Now at the bottom of this screen, you'll see something called Add Materials. Now this is not where you add things like assignments or something that you want your students to do. This is where you add things that may be helpful to them all semester or all year long, like a syllabus or a welcome video or a list of the units you're going to be studying. It's very simple to add these materials, so I'm going to click here and show you what your options are. The first option you have down here at the bottom is you have the option to upload a file from your computer or your thumb drive or your external hard drive where you can actually attach something to your assignment. We find as more people are using Google tools that this one is not used as much. The next one, however, is used quite frequently, and that's attach something from Google Drive. That is, you have something in your Google Drive folder and you want to share it with your students. The next icon is for adding something to YouTube. Maybe you, not adding something to YouTube rather, but adding something from YouTube to your resources. You can click there and it will add some sort of video that may be a welcome message. Maybe you're doing a flipped classroom scenario and you have a little welcome message or an introductory video you want to put up. The last one is a link, and that's simply maybe a link to a website that you're going to have your students go to a lot and you want to provide them with a quick link. You can put it in this About tab. So for this sample, I'm going to put up a document from our Google Drive. So I'm going to click here to attach something, and I'm going to say I have this agenda here that I want to add to the class, and this is our agenda that we're going to use all semester long. So I'm going to say this is the class agenda and list of resources. So this is from Google Drive. You see a tiny little image of it, and when I'm ready I can click post, and that's going to post it into this area. Now I do have in my inbox here a shortcut for a video, so I'm going to go here, and this is actually a YouTube video. So I'm going to copy that link and come back to the classroom. And if I wanted to add a YouTube video, I would simply click here. And I could search it if I know the name of it, but I have the URL. So I'm going to paste that URL there, and you'll see a little preview so you'll know if it's the correct one. Now this happens to be a Classroom 101 video to teach people how to use Google Classroom. So I'm going to click Add. It puts the little icon and the name of the video there, and it even tells how long it is. And I'm going to say learn more about Google Classroom. Apparently I'm having difficulty typing today. Okay, so then I'm going to post. So now I've got some resources here, and you can continue to add those materials, and you can add them throughout the use of the class. But this is the place where you're going to go and just add resources that your students can pull from, not where you're going to add assignments and those kinds of things. Angie's going to show you where to put those in just a moment. So those are your materials in your About tab. The last thing I'm going to do on this tab before we move back to students is I'm going to say that I would like to invite another teacher to help me teach this class. So I'm going to click on Invite, and it's going to pull up a directory of my contacts and all the different people that I have communicated with or who live in the directory, which is the HCPS directory. But I'm going to look for Angie McClung because I want her to teach with me. And sometimes you'll notice when you pull up someone's name, it may show them multiple times. Don't worry about that. It doesn't mean something's wrong. You just need to make sure you find one that has hcpsnc.org next to it. Select it, and you'll notice down here on the bottom, Angie's name went into this little piece here. And so I could actually at this point add someone else. So if I wanted to add Amber in, and I found Amber, so here she is. Notice how it adds her name here. So you can keep adding co-teachers. Once you've added everyone you wanted to add, you click Next. And I want you to pay attention to this statement here. It says teachers you add, which would be your co-teachers, can do everything you can, but they cannot delete the class. So that's really good to know. So what happens when I click Invite is that both Amber and Angie are getting an invitation, and you'll notice how right now it shows Angie is a teacher and she's been invited. And as soon as she accepts that invitation, she won't be grayed out anymore. She'll be an active teacher in the classroom, and so will Amber. So when I oh, there she is. She just joined our class. So she says, okay, I'll help you teach that. And up at the very top, you can see Jane's face, Angie's face, and that Amber is still invited and hasn't yet joined. But now they can put grades in, they can post assignments, they can do everything that I can do. So it's a really great option for people who have multiple people teaching a class, or if you wanted to create a professional development session and have some co-teachers. So that's the About tab. So I'm going to go back to the Students tab because let's say now we've put up some resources and we want to get some students in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you type in, go to your home screen. Now I'm going to show you what to do, but you're going to go to your home screen and you're going to click on Classes. and you're going to click on the plus sign, and this time you're going to join the class. But I have to give you this code, and the class code for this class is 3805 lowercase v 54. 3805 lowercase v 54. And as soon as I give that out to my students, all they have to do is go to the plus sign, join, type that code in, and they'll immediately come to my class because that is the code for this class. So as students start coming into the class, they'll pop up in this list here, and after they've joined the class and they're showing up in the list, I have another option as well. If I don't want to give them this code, perhaps I wanted to invite them instead. Oh, and here's a student, our fake student just joined. In case I wanted to invite them, I can also click on invite, and if I have made a list in my contacts called like first period students, I've gone and made a contact list, you can click on that list, it'll pull up your students, and you can select them and invite them this way as well. So there are different ways that you can either invite them or you can give them the code. So that's totally up to you what you choose to do. I will show you this, however, over where this says class code, should you have to reset that code for any reason, maybe you have a rogue student who's passing it out to everybody because your class is so awesome they want everyone to join, you might need to reset that code, or you can also disable it so that no other students can join with that code. So that's just up to you. I did want to show you that that was there in the event you needed to change your code or disable it. The last thing I'm going to talk about real quick before I pass things over to Angie is as your students are coming in, there are a couple things that you can do with them. One is you have a direct link to email them. So I can click here and immediately my email opens and I can start emailing the student, and you'll notice this is just an email that popped up. So that's something that I could do. I'm going to delete that one because I don't really want to email fake student right now. I can also select a student or multiple students, and there's some actions at the top. I could remove them from my class, so if I have a student who's moved away and they don't really need to be in my class anymore, I can remove them. I can email multiple students if I need to, but here's an important one, and that's called mute. That's going to make sense to you in just a moment, but I might need to mute fake student, and here is why. At the top of your class, you'll have an important decision to make. You will need to decide what your students can do in your classroom stream. The first option is students can post and comment. That means my students can come to the stream and put up a post, hey gang, what's up? And they can comment on one another's as well. The second option is students can only comment. They can't put up a main post, but if I put up a post, they can comment to it and they can comment to one another's posts, one another's comments. The last one is only the teacher can post or comment, which means your students aren't speaking and collaborating in the stream at all, but they can still do assignments and those other things. So you'll have to decide what you feel comfortable with, and this can be changed at any time. But let's say perhaps you wanted to start with it on students can post and comment. If you have one particular student who's being a problem, you can come over and mute them. And if you choose to mute them, that particular student won't be able to post or comment. So that's a way of you can have the door open and let your other students who are doing what they're supposed to be doing, posting and commenting, but then your fake student who perhaps was misbehaving, you can mute that person. So there's lots of different ways you can collaborate. So this is where your students come in. So we've gone through the interface, and I'm going to turn it over to Angie, and we're going to take a look about now we've got students in the classroom. What are we going to do next?
Okay, now that you have your class made and you've got it all formatted, we're going to talk about how you can actually add content to your class. And there's several different types of content that you can add. And all of this is done from the magic button in the bottom right-hand corner with the plus sign on it. Anytime that you need to add something, this is where you're going to go. So the first thing that we're going to talk about today is creating an announcement. So I'm going to click on the plus sign, and you can see you have a few choices here. And the one here at the bottom is create the announcement. These also have icons that go along with them, and the announcement has the speech bubble, so that's kind of a cue for what you're attempting to do when you add this content. So we're going to create an announcement for the class. This is a place where you can simply give your class members an announcement about anything, tests, quizzes, field trips, anything like that. So we're going to say that our class is going to be going on a field trip to the Biltmore House, and I'm going to send them an announcement to remind them about the field trip and about sending in their field trip form. So in the share with your class field, I'm going to type in whatever I want my announcement to say. So I'm going to say, don't forget about the field trip to Biltmore House on October 19th. Please turn in the field trip permission form by the 16th. Okay, so now you've got whatever content that you want to actually show up in the announcement. Now down here at the bottom, just similar to what Amber showed you earlier with the resources, you have the ability to attach things to an announcement. So in this case, I'm going to pretend that I have saved the field trip form into my Google Drive, and I want to provide this to them so that if they need to log into this at home to print another copy of the form, then they will have that available. So I'm going to click on the Drive icon, and I'm going to find the field trip form that we have for them. So here's the field trip form. So I'm going to click on that and choose Add. So now we have the field trip form that's from the Google Docs, and we have our announcement. I want you to notice at the bottom left that you still have the other attachments. You can attach multiple things to this announcement if you would like to do that. For example, maybe I want to put the link to the Biltmore House. Okay, so I can click Add. And now I have the field trip form and a link. So those things will be available to the students when this announcement is posted. Before I post, however, I want to consider if I have multiple classrooms running at the same time. If I do have multiple classes, I may want to post the same announcement to more than one class at a time. This drop-down menu at the bottom of the announcement allows you to do this. You will only see this drop-down menu if you have multiple classes. If I want to send this Biltmore House announcement to all these different classes, all I have to do is come down into this drop-down and put check marks beside whichever classes that I wish to receive this announcement. You can choose one, you can choose them all, but this is a great way for you to send this to multiple classrooms without having to remake the assignment in each one. So once you've decided which classes you want to send it to, then you click Post. You will notice that this populates into the stream. So this is what the students will see as well, not to forget about the trip to the Biltmore House and to turn in their field trip forms. On the student page, Amber talked to you about students being able to comment and post. If you have allowed that, you will see that Fake Student now has made a comment under the announcement. Sometimes this might be questions, sometimes it might be comments, but if you've allowed them to do this, then they will be able to comment on whatever announcements you make. So that's a great way to post anything that you need your students to know. Now that we've put an announcement, we're going to talk a little bit about assignments. So sometimes you will want to provide your students with an assignment and have them return the work to you so that you can grade it. So one of your other options under the plus sign is to create an assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and click Create Assignment, and this is what the pop-up screen looks like for this. Okay, the title of the assignment is going to be book study questions. I can give it a description. Okay. You'll notice that we have a new field here that we did not have an announcement, and that is the due date. So once I post the assignment, I have some options here. I can turn the due date off if I don't want this to have a specific date that it's due. If I need to change the date, I can click on the calendar and it's going to give me a pop-down calendar where I can choose the date that it's due. And then you also have the option to give it a specific time. If you need that to be done at 5 p.m. on a specific date, you can actually give it a time. Once you've made your decisions on the due date, you click Save. You'll notice down here that you have the same options for attaching things to this assignment. But one of the things that we suggest when you're working with assignments in Google Classroom is that any of the documents that you would like the students to fill out themselves and return to you, is that you make those in Google Docs. And we're going to talk about what makes this such a powerful option in just a minute. But what I have done is made up my book study questions, and I have posted it into my Google Drive. So I'm going to click on the Google Drive option, and then I'm going to find my document that's called book study questions. I can click on it and click Add. So now that this has become attached, you get a new drop-down menu. This is really where we feel that the power of Google Classroom comes in. You have a few options. If you say that the students can view the file, that means that when they open that file up onto their computer, they will be able to view only. This means that they can make a copy for themselves if they need to, but they can't edit your original. Your second option is students can edit the file, which means you have one document that all of your students can all edit. So you would not want to do this on one of your agendas or your study guides where you wouldn't want them to make changes. But if you did have them working on a group project, this would be an option. But the option that we're the most excited about is make a copy for each student. What this means is that Google Drive will make a book study questions document for each student in your class. Then they can work on that individually and return it to you, and it will be only their work. So I'm going to choose that here so that you can see what this looks like. Choose make a copy for each student. Again, I have the option to choose which classes I'd like to post this assignment to. Once I've made that decision, I can click Assign. I'm going to click Assign. One of the things that's very nice for the students is that they will now receive an email letting them know that they have a book study assignment. And as the teacher, now you can see I have this assignment here, and it tells me how many students that I have in the class who've not completed it, and it also tells me how many have completed it. When the student clicks on this assignment and clicks into the Google Doc, they will receive their own copy of the document. The nice thing about that is when they open it up into Google Docs, it will have the same title that the teacher has given it, and beside it, it will say their name. Since they are logged into their account, that actual document will have their name on it, which we know as teachers can sometimes be a problem of people forgetting to put their name on it. So this is a very nice option as well. What they can do is they can continue to work on their document, and once they have it completed in the form that they want it to be sent to the teacher, they can actually submit it directly from the document, and that will send it to the teacher and let them know that the students have done their assignments. And so now you can see that on the book study questions, it tells me that I have 0 not done and 1 done. Obviously, I only have 1 student right now, so this is going to be quite an easy grading job today. But once I have my students done, and you don't have to wait till they're all complete, but you can click on this area where it says 1 done. Then what will happen is you will come to a screen that will have on the left a list of all your students and a place where you can post a grade, and on the right it will show their individual documents. So you're only going to see all of their individual documents listed here with their names on it if you've done make a copy for each student, which we've done in this case. So as the teacher, I can come over here to this work that Fake Student has done. I can open this. It will open it in Google Docs. And now I can see what the student has answered. You notice at the top it has this title that the teacher gave to the assignment, and it also has the student's name. I have several options here. I do have edit rights on this, so I can go in and type comments, or I can highlight sections, and I can use the comments section in the top right where I can add a comment. So I'm going to give my comment, and then I'm going to post the comment. Once I submit this back to them, the students will actually be able to see these comments, which gives the teacher a great way to provide immediate feedback to student work. I can close this out. If I'm not completely finished, I can always come back at a later time, go back into the document and continue working. But once I'm finished, I can actually give the student a grade in Classroom. So now they will have two forms of feedback. They'll have the feedback you've put on their document, and then you will also have the grade. One of the things that you need to remember is that this will not automatically send the grades to PowerSchool. You will still have to go in and add those grades yourself, but you can export these grades if you'd like to and import them in. So all I have to do to give this student a grade is click into the Add Grade section, and I can give them a grade. Now you'll notice that right now, after I put the grade in, it's telling me I've put the grade in, but I haven't returned it to the student. So we'll do that in just a second. I want to point out above your grading section, this shows you what grading scale you're using. There are a few generic grading scales here, but you also can click into this section and change the grading scale to match whatever grading scale you use in your classroom. Now that I've placed the grade in the student grade, I can actually, once I put the grade in, it puts a check mark beside their name, and now all I have to do is click return. It gives me a little warning that says, are you wanting to return the work to the student? And if I say yes, return, the student will now be able to see the grade that they've been given. One thing to remember is when you have a class full of students, you can give grades to multiple students and return them all at one time. Okay, so this is an assignment. So we're going to go back using the arrow at the top right, top left, and now we're going to add our third option for content, and that is a question. This is sort of like an assignment, except it is not asking them to send you an actual document back. It's asking them to answer a question that you offer. So I'm going to click on my plus sign and then choose Create Question. So all I have to do is give my title of the question. So I'll say, what was your favorite part of Chapter 2? I can give a description if I'd like to. I also can give this a due date, or I can turn that off. I can do some attachments if I'd like to. Maybe I might say, read the attached article and place your comments here. This is going to allow the students to answer your questions. You have the option again to add it to whichever classes you choose to. And once you have your question ready, you choose Ask. On a question, you're going to have more options. Now you have to decide if you want your students to be able to see and reply to each other's answers. There may be some cases where you want to, as the teacher, want to be the only person who's going to see their answers. And there may be some where you want them to have a conversation in your class, so you'd like them to see and reply to each other's answers. It defaults to that, so if you would like only you to be able to see the answers and the other teachers, you need to uncheck this. There's also the option to let them edit their answers. So if this is something you're going to want them to keep going back and changing and perfecting, you can actually add the check mark there. Once you've made your decisions, you click Ask. And this is going to come up here, and it's going to look very similar to an assignment. And this is where your students will go in, answer your question, and then you also get the option here to see who has done, how many have done the assignment and how many are not done. once your students start completing their answers to the question, you will see it populate here as to how many students have done. And you will get the same grading options as you did with an assignment. So this is very nice. It also gives you your due date, and it shows you your question. So if I click onto this section, now you can see that Fake Student has added their answer. This is exactly the same as the grading option for the assignment. It's just that they have a typed out answer to your question rather than having a document. You also get the grading options just as you did on an assignment. Okay. All right, we're going to go back and look at the main page again. You will notice that when you have questions or you have assignments that you've put a due date on, you will always see them in the top right-hand corner of the box in the stream. One of the things that Classroom has recently added is a calendar. Each classroom that you create will provide a calendar for the students so that they can see events. So if you go to the hamburger option in the top left-hand corner, this is one way that you can see your calendar. Okay. Another way to see the calendar is to go to the About tab. And in this tab, you actually have two options. The first one is to view the calendar in Classroom. So I'm going to click on this so you can see what it's like. And this actually gives you a weekly calendar. And you'll notice that these were the two assignments that we added today so that the students can see what's due on which days. For students that are in classes, multiple classes where teachers are providing instruction through Google Classroom, if they click on this drop-down menu, they can actually choose the calendar for all classes, and it will show them any assignments they have due for any of the classes in which they're enrolled. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my hamburger icon, and I'm going to go back to my class that we're working in and go back to the About tab. The second option is for you to view the calendar in Google Calendar. This is only if you have chosen to use your Google Calendar. If your students are using that, it does give them the option to add a Google Calendar, for this classroom onto their Google Calendar. And to do this, they would click Open in Google Calendar. As the teacher, it's automatically going to add it to my calendar. If I'm a student, it may give you the option to add that to your calendars. Okay, so now I have my classroom calendar on here so you can see that those assignments are also within my Google Calendar. So it is very nice that they have the option to either view that in Classroom or use it in Google Calendar if they choose to use that. Okay. All right, one thing that I do want to point out to you is that whenever you are adding documents into your classroom, Google Drive is working in the background for you to organize all of this information. So I do want to go into Jane's Google Drive, and whenever you make or join a classroom, you get automatically made a classroom folder in your My Drive area of Google Drive. Inside this classroom folder is a folder for each of the classes in which you participate or teach. And so if I go to my sample classroom that we made today, you'll notice that there is a folder that has book study questions, and then it tells you not to edit anything about the templates. But this is where all of those documents are going to be living that your students are making. But you definitely want to access those through Classroom because that gives you the grading option. But I did want to show you this organizational structure that happens in the background. All right, going back into Classroom, if we go back to our hamburger menu and go to our classes menu, You do have the option to archive a class. At the current time, we do not have the option to reset a class and take students out so that you can reuse the class for the next semester. We hope that that will be something that will come in the future, but for right now they don't. So if you're at the end of the year and you don't want to delete a course, but you would like to archive it so that it doesn't show up in your list all of the time, you can choose archive. You also have the option to rename this class. If I go back into our sample class and I go to the About tab, you'll remember earlier that I added this class. I added Angie as a teacher. Beside their name, if I'm the person that created the class and they have 3 dots, I can actually take that that teacher out of the class if I need to take them out as well. Okay. So now we've learned a little bit about using Classroom. I do want to give you a hint about where you can get some help if you forget some of the things that we've talked about in the video today. If you will go to the Henderson County website, and if you choose Departments and you click on Instructional Technology, on the left you will see Resources by Topic, and on this page in alphabetical order you will see Google Apps. This is our Google support site from our Instructional Technology department, and we have a lot of information about different apps, but the place I want to show you today that could be helpful to you is this Google Apps training resources on the side. So I'm going to click on that, and we have folders with documents from all of the different apps. And what we've been working with today is Classroom, so I'm going to click on the Classroom folder. And there's several help options in here, but the 2 things I want to point out to you are the Introduction to Google Classroom, and this is a guide for teachers that has the information that we talked about today. There's a table of contents where you can click on the individual topic that you need. If you've forgotten how to create an assignment, you can click on this and it will take you to this section of the help guide. So that's the Introduction to Google Classroom. We've also made a training guide for students. This might be helpful for you to share with your students so they will know how to join classes, how to look at the interface, how to submit assignments. So this might be helpful for your students to look at as they are starting their adventure in Google Classroom with you. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us at itech@hcpsnc.org, and we'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. Thanks.